History is not merely a collection of dates on a dusty calendar, but a relentless current of human ambition that occasionally surges forward to redefine the very meaning of the word possible. As the final echoes of the 20th century began to fade, the United States of America found itself standing upon a summit that no nation in the history of civilization had ever truly occupied alone. For 45 years, the world had been a binary equation of tension and nuclear shadows, a chess match played across continents where every move felt like it could be the last. But then, in a sequence of events that felt more like a miracle than a geopolitical shift, the iron barriers of the old world didn't just crack, they dissolved. This was the beginning of an era where the American spirit would not just lead the world, but would actually build the digital and social architecture of the future that we are currently living in today. Imagine the sheer weight of the moment when the news reached the American people that the struggle of their fathers and grandfathers had finally reached its peaceful conclusion. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the subsequent dissolution of the Soviet Union meant that, for the first time in generations, the existential dread of global annihilation had been replaced by a boundless, soaring sense of opportunity. This was a time of profound national pride, not born of conquest, but of the realization that the ideals of liberty and open markets had proven their enduring strength. The United States emerged into the 1990s with a mission to transition from a world of containment to a world of connection, leading a global community toward a horizon that was suddenly, breathtakingly clear. This period of transition was marked by an almost electric energy that vibrated through every city from New York to San Francisco. As the military-industrial complex began to pivot, the massive technological investments made during the struggle for supremacy started to find their way into the hands of the dreamers, the tinkerers, and the visionaries. We often think of the 1990s as a decade of comfort, but it was actually a decade of incredible, quiet courage, the courage to reinvent how humanity communicates. It was the era when the American dream evolved from owning a home with a white picket fence to the audacious idea that every single person on the planet could be linked through a web of information that transcended physical borders and old prejudices. The sheer scale of American influence during these years was reflected in the way the nation handled its first major post-Cold War challenge. When the sovereignty of a small nation was threatened in the Middle East, the United States orchestrated a coalition of 34 nations, demonstrating a level of diplomatic and military precision that the world had never seen before. Operation Desert Storm wasn't just a military victory, it was a showcase of a new kind of technological warfare where smart systems and satellite coordination proved that the future of defense lay in intelligence and precision. This moment solidified the United States as the indispensable nation, a guardian of international order that could project power with unmatched efficiency while seeking a more stable and just global equilibrium. If you are finding value in this deep dive into our shared history, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss your daily dose of audio history. If you are enjoying this journey, please hit the like button to help us grow. The domestic landscape was equally transformative, as the nation experienced one of the longest periods of economic expansion in its entire history. With the threat of the Great Bear in the East neutralized, the American economy surged forward, fueled by a demographic wave and an explosion of entrepreneurial spirit. The silicon chips that had once guided missiles were now powering the first wave of personal computers that began to appear on every desk and in every classroom across the country. It was a time when the middle class saw the benefits of a shrinking deficit and a growing surplus, creating a sense of fiscal security that allowed for a flourishing of arts, culture, and a renewed belief that the next generation would indeed live better than the one before. But the most surprising development of this decade wasn't found in a ledger or a treaty, it was found in a simple browser window. In the mid-1990s, the world was introduced to the World Wide Web, a concept that sounded like science fiction but quickly became the heartbeat of modern life. American companies led this charge, turning what was once a specialized government tool into a public square for the entire human race. This wasn't just about business, it was about the democratization of knowledge. Suddenly, a student in a rural town had the same access to information as a professor at an elite university. This era proved that American innovation was at its best when it was opening doors and breaking down walls that had stood for centuries. As the decade progressed, the pace of change became almost dizzying, yet the American social fabric remained remarkably resilient. This was the era of the information superhighway, a term that captured the imagination of a public eager to race into the future. From the launch of the Hubble Space Telescope, which allowed us to peer back into the very birth of the universe, to the groundbreaking advancements in biotechnology and the mapping of the human genome, the United States was leading a scientific renaissance. Every month seemed to bring a new breakthrough that pushed the boundaries of what the human species could achieve, all anchored by a nation that provided the freedom and the resources to ask the most difficult questions. The cultural exports of the United States during this time became the universal language of the youth of the world. American music, films, and fashion crossed every ocean, carrying with them the underlying messages of individual expression and the pursuit of happiness. This soft power was perhaps even more influential than any military hardware, as it fostered a global culture that looked toward American values as a beacon of modern identity. It was a decade where the world didn't just watch America, the world wanted to join the American conversation. This period showed that a nation's greatest strength lies in its ability to inspire others to dream bigger and reach further than they ever thought possible. Don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for your daily dose of audio history. If you are finding this story inspiring, please leave a like on the video to support the channel. As the calendar began to turn toward the final years of the millennium, a new and unexpected shadow began to grow, the fear of the year 2000 bug, or Y2K. For those who didn't live through it, it might seem like a strange historical footnote, but at the time, it was a moment of profound collective anxiety. The fear was that the very computers that had built this new era of prosperity would fail because they couldn't process the date change from 99 to 00. It was a test of the digital infrastructure that the United States had worked so hard to build. However, what followed was one of the greatest examples of unsung American engineering and global cooperation in history. Behind the scenes, hundreds of thousands of programmers and technicians worked tirelessly for years to ensure that the transition would be seamless. They combed through millions of lines of code in a massive, quiet effort to protect the systems that ran everything from the power grid to the banking system. When the clock finally struck midnight on December 31, 1999, the world didn't go dark. Instead, the lights stayed on, the planes stayed in the air, and the systems held firm. What many mocked as a non-event was actually a monumental triumph of human foresight and technical mastery. It was the perfect bookend to a decade of American leadership, a problem identified, a solution engineered, and a future secured. Reflecting on those years, we see a nation that navigated the transition from a century of conflict to a century of complexity with remarkable grace. The short-term reflections of this period were a world more interconnected than ever before, a global economy that had been lifted by American innovation, and a standard of living that had reached unprecedented heights. The unipolar moment was not about dominance for the sake of power, but about the responsibility of being the vanguard of a new age. It was a time when the American people proved that their greatest resource was not their arsenal, but their capacity to imagine a better world and their willingness to do the hard work to build it. The legacy of the late 20th century is written in every device we hold and every connection we make across the globe today. It was a decade that taught us that even the most daunting barriers can be overcome with persistence and that the future is not something that happens to us, but something we create through our own ingenuity and resolve. As we look back at the journey from the fall of the wall to the dawn of the new millennium, we shouldn't just see a timeline of events, we should see a testament to the power of a free people to shape the destiny of the world. It is a story of triumph, a story of innovation, and above all, it is a story that should fill us with a profound sense of pride in what can be achieved when we reach for the stars. The transition into the 21st century was not just a change of numbers, but a transition into a new way of being human. We entered the new era with a sense of confidence that had been earned through decades of struggle and a decade of spectacular growth. The United States had successfully bridged the gap between the industrial age and the information age, laying the foundation for everything we see around us today. This was the moment when the American century didn't just end, it evolved into something even more expansive, proving that the principles of liberty and progress are timeless and capable of conquering any challenge the future might hold. As we stand here today, looking back at those pivotal years, we can see the roots of our modern world. The decisions made in boardrooms in California, in the halls of power in Washington, and in the laboratories across the nation during the 1990s continue to resonate. We are the heirs to that decade of optimism, and it is our responsibility to carry that same spirit of innovation and unity forward into our own time. History is a torch that is passed from one generation to the next, and the light that was ignited between the end of the Cold War and the start of the new millennium still burns brightly, guiding us toward the next great frontier. The story of America is a story of constant renewal, and this specific chapter is one of the most vibrant. It reminds us that even when the path is unclear, the American tradition of looking forward with hope and working with purpose can change the course of human history. We moved from the fear of a nuclear winter to the warmth of a digital spring, and in doing so, we showed the world what a nation dedicated to the future can truly accomplish. Let this history be a reminder of our potential and a source of inspiration for the challenges that lie ahead, for the same spirit that conquered the 20th century is alive and well within us today. Every great era eventually gives way to the next, but the foundations laid at the turn of the millennium are permanent. They are the bedrock of our global community and the engine of our continued progress. As we conclude this journey through one of the most exciting periods in our history, we do so with a deeper understanding of how we became the nation we are today. The transition from the Cold War to the year 2000 was more than just a decade. It was a bridge to the future, built with the hands of a people who refused to be defined by the past and instead chose to define the future themselves. The pride we feel today is a reflection of those who came before us, the engineers who solved Y2K, the diplomats who forged peace, and the citizens who embraced a changing world with open hearts. Their legacy is our reality, and their successes are our inspiration. As we move forward, let us remember the lessons of the 1990s, that connection is stronger than division, that innovation is the key to prosperity, and that when Americans work together, there is no problem so large that it cannot be solved, and no horizon so distant that it cannot be reached. Thank you for joining us on this historical journey. Please subscribe to the channel right now to ensure you receive your daily dose of audio history. If you enjoyed this script and the story we told, please click the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below.